Every sin leaves a trail. Archer Fairborn thought he knew exactly what kind of sinner was living under his roof. He saw the missing supplies. He saw the shadows moving in the halls at 3 a.m. He thought he had caught a thief. But when he finally played back the tape from the hidden camera, he didn't find a criminal stealing his diamonds. He found the only person in the world trying to save the one thing he loved most. And the truth would shatter his empire. Grab your snacks and settle in. This is The Maid in the Lion's Den. Don't forget to like and subscribe because you won't believe who the real villain is. The heat in the city was not merely weather. It was a physical weight, pressing down on the skyline until the skyscrapers seemed to tremble in the haze. There was no rain to wash the grime away, only a relentless baking sun that turned the asphalt into tar and made temperaments snap like dry twigs. Inside the Fairborn estate, the climate was artificially controlled, maintained at a crisp 68 degrees, but Archer Fairborn felt like he was suffocating. Archer stood by the floor-to-ceiling glass of his study on the 45th floor, looking down at the city he theoretically owned. He was a man carved from marble and resentment, his suits tailored to hide the gun holstered beneath his arm and the tension in his shoulders. At 32, he was the head of the Fairborn Syndicate, a legitimate shipping logistics empire that moved more illicit cargo than Amazon moved books. But power had made him paranoid. The inventory doesn't match, Archer, his lieutenant Silas said. Silas was sitting on the leather couch, flipping through a tablet. Domestic supplies, kitchen stock, high-end proteins, supplements. It's small stuff, but it's consistent. Archer turned, his eyes the color of flint. I don't care about the cost, Silas. I care about the breach. If someone is stealing milk, they'll steal a ledger. Who is it? The staff has been vetted, Silas replied, though he looked bored. But you have that new girl, the one for the night shift, Marlo Drake. Archer summoned the image of her in his mind. She was a ghost in his house. Most maids tried to be invisible out of fear. Marlo seemed to be invisible out of strategy. She was 24. With dark hair she kept pulled back so tight it looked painful, and eyes that saw everything but reflected nothing. She didn't flinch when he entered a room. She didn't stammer. She just worked, with a terrifying, rhythmic efficiency. She's been here a month, Archer said, walking back to his desk. My mother's condition deteriorated a week after she arrived. You think she's poisoning Helena? Silas sat up straighter. I think everyone is a suspect, Archer snapped. The doctors say Mom is just fading, that it's the dementia and the muscle atrophy. But I saw her last week. She looked terrified. She wouldn't eat. Archer rubbed his temples. His mother, Helena Fairborn, was the former matriarch of the family, a woman of steel who had been reduced to a skeleton in a bed in the East Wing. He hired the best private nurses, the best specialists. They all told him the same thing. It's the progression of the disease, Mr. Fairborn. There is nothing to be done. But things were going missing. Not jewelry, not cash, food, specialized nutrition shakes, electrolytes, and sometimes silver spoons that reappeared in the drawer days later, scratched. Bring the girl in? Silas asked. No, Archer said, a cold smile touching his lips. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the look of a predator spotting movement in the tall grass. If she's a spy for the Rossi family or just a common thief, an interrogation will just make her clam up. I want to see what she does when she thinks she's alone. He opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a small black box. Install them, Archer commanded, tossing the box to Silas. Everywhere. The pantry, the corridors, the kitchen, and especially the entrance to the East Wing. I want 4K resolution, night vision, and audio. Tonight, we watch the rat run the maze. Marlo Drake knew she was being watched. She didn't need to see the tiny pinhole lens hidden in the smoke detector to know the atmosphere in the house had shifted. The air felt heavier, charged with static. Archer Fairborn had been lingering in the hallways, his gaze burning into her back as she polished the mahogany banisters. He was a beautiful, terrifying man, sharp angles and violence wrapped in Tom Ford suits. But Marlo didn't have the luxury of fear. She had a mission. It was 2 a.m. The house was silent, save for the hum of the massive HVAC system fighting the summer heat wave outside. Marlo moved through the kitchen, her rubber-soled shoes making no sound on the imported Italian marble. She wore her uniform, a simple gray dress that she hated, but it offered pockets, deep pockets. She opened the industrial refrigerator. The light spilled out, illuminating her pale face. She reached past the champagne and the prepackaged gourmet meals for Archer. Her hand went to a container of organic bone broth she had prepared herself 2 days ago and hidden behind a crate of sparkling water. She also grabbed a small jar of pureed vegetables, spinach and carrots, that she had blitzed in the blender when the head chef was on a smoke break. Click. The sound was soft, almost imperceptible, but Marlowe froze. She glanced at the ceiling corner. The red light of a sensor blinked once. He's watching, she thought. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird in a cage. If she were caught stealing food, she would be fired. If she were caught going where she was planning to go, she might be killed. Archer Fairborn did not tolerate disobedience, and the East Wing was strictly forbidden to general staff. Only the private medical team, a group of 3 nurses who rotated shifts, was allowed in Helena's suite. But Marlowe had seen the nurses. She had seen them laughing in the courtyard when they should have been monitoring vitals. She had seen the trays of food come out of the room untouched, dumped into the trash compactor before Archer returned home from work. She tucked the jar and the thermos of broth into the deep pockets of her apron. She grabbed a clean spoon and wrapped it in a napkin to stop it from clinking. Upstairs in the security hub, Archer leaned forward in his chair. "There," he whispered. On the high-definition monitor, the feed was black and white, but the clarity was perfect. He watched Marlowe raid the fridge. "She's stealing soup?" Silas asked, standing behind him, confused. "That's it? You woke me up because the maid is hungry?" "Look closer," Archer murmured. "She's not eating it. She's packing it, hiding it. Maybe she's taking it home to a boyfriend, or a kid. She lives in the servant quarters on the grounds," Archer said. "She has nowhere to take it." On the screen, Marlowe closed the fridge. She didn't head toward the servant exit. She didn't head toward her own room. She moved toward the grand staircase. Archer's eyes narrowed. "She's going up." "The bedrooms are up there," Silas noted, his hand instinctively moving to his hip. "Your room. The safe." "And the East Wing," Archer corrected. His voice dropped an octave, becoming dangerous. "If she goes near my mother." They watched in silence as Marlowe ascended the stairs. She moved with a purpose that wasn't frantic. It was calculated. She paused at the landing, looking left and right. Then, she turned left, toward the corridor that housed the master suites in the medical wing. "She's bypassing your office," Silas said. "She's bypassing your bedroom." Archer stood up. "She's heading for the medical suite. Why? There's nothing of value in there except drugs." "Maybe she's an addict," Silas suggested. "Stealing morphine." Archer watched as Marlowe approached the heavy oak double doors of the East Wing. The night nurse, a woman named Nurse Ratched. No, that was a joke. Her name was Nurse Gables, but she had the temperament of a prison warden, was supposed to be on duty inside. Marlowe put her ear to the door. She waited. Then slowly she pushed the door open and slipped inside. "That's it," Archer growled. He grabbed his tablet, switching the feed to the camera he had installed inside his mother's room just 3 hours ago. A camera nobody, not even the medical staff, knew about. "Let's see what you are, Marlowe," Archer hissed. "Thief, junkie, or assassin?" Archer didn't wait for the video feed to load on the tablet. The lag was only a few seconds, but his rage was instantaneous. He slammed the door of the security room and sprinted down the hall. If she touches her, if she hurts her. His mother was the only soft thing left in his life. The only reason he hadn't burned the city down. To think that this quiet, mouse-like woman he had allowed into his home was preying on an invalid made red spots dance in his vision. He reached the East Wing in seconds. The hallway was dark, lit only by the ambient moonlight filtering through the high windows. The air smelled of antiseptic and stale lavender, the smell of sickness masking decay. He drew his gun, not to fire, but to intimidate. He moved to the door Marlowe had just entered. He didn't burst in. He pushed it open silently, just an inch, peering into the gloom. The room was vast, filled with medical equipment that beeped rhythmically. In the center lay the massive 4-poster bed, where Helena Fairborn wasted away. Where was the nurse? Nurse Gables should have been in the chair by the window. Archer scanned the room. The chair was empty. A magazine lay open on the floor. Through the cracked door of the ensuite bathroom, he heard the faint, distinct sound of snoring. The nurse was asleep in the bathtub, likely hungover or simply negligent. His gaze snapped to the bed. Marlowe was there. Archer raised the weapon, ready to shout, ready to end this. But the words died in his throat. Marlowe wasn't smothering his mother. She wasn't rifling through the jewelry box on the nightstand. She wasn't injecting anything into the IV lines. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, her body curved protectively over Helena's frail form. The bedside lamp was dimmed to its lowest setting, casting a golden halo over them. "Shh, it's okay, Mrs. Fairborn," Marlowe whispered. Her voice was unrecognizable. Gone was the flat, professional tone she used with Archer. This voice was warm, like honey and liquid sunshine. I know. You're hungry. They didn't feed you dinner, did they?" Archer froze. "They didn't feed you." The chart said she had eaten a full pureed meal at 6 p.m. Helena, who usually looked at Archer with vacant, terrified eyes, was gazing up at Marlowe with desperate recognition. The old woman's hands, thin as parchment, clutched at Marlowe's gray uniform. "Please," Helena rasped. It was the first word Archer had heard her speak clearly in months. "Please, I have it right here," Marlowe cooed. She pulled the thermos from her pocket. She opened it, and the scent of rich, savory broth wafted through the sterile air. It smelled like real food, not the chemical sludge the doctors prescribed. Marlowe dipped the spoon into the broth. She blew on it gently, testing the temperature against her own wrist, before bringing it to Helena's lips. Helena opened her mouth eagerly. She swallowed, then let out a small, contented sigh. "Good?" Marlowe asked, smiling. "I put extra turmeric in it tonight, for the inflammation, and I blended the carrots so fine you won't even feel them." Archer lowered the gun slowly. His heart was pounding a different rhythm now. Confusion. "Why won't they let me eat?" Helena whispered, her voice cracking. "The bitter medicine. It burns." "I know," Marlowe said, her face hardening as she glanced toward the bathroom where the nurse slept. "That's why we have our secret midnight picnics, okay? You have to eat this so you can get strong. Strong enough to tell Archer." Archer's breath hitched. "Tell Archer." "He won't believe me," Helena whimpered, tears leaking from her eyes. "He trusts her." "He loves you," Marlowe corrected firmly, feeding her another spoonful. "He's just blind. Men like him, they look at the big picture so much they miss the details. But he'll see. I promise, Mrs. Fairborn, I won't let you starve." Archer stepped back into the hallway, the door clicking shut silently. He leaned against the wall, the cold plaster seeping into his suit. He felt sick. He had set a trap for a thief. He had prepared himself to catch a rat. Instead, he had just witnessed his thief, saving the life of the woman he had failed to protect. The inventory discrepancies, the missing vegetables, the protein powder. She hadn't been stealing from him. She had been stealing for Helena, because the staff, the expensive, highly vetted medical staff, was starving her. But why? And who was pulling the strings? Archer holstered his gun. The anger was still there, but it had shifted targets. He looked at the closed door. He wouldn't confront Marlowe yet. If she was the only thing keeping his mother alive, he couldn't blow her cover. He needed to know who her was, the woman Helena was afraid of. He walked back toward the security room, his mind racing. The hunter had just realized he was the one being hunted, and the maid he suspected was the only soldier on his side. Let's see what else the cameras caught, Archer thought. Let's see what the nurses do when Marlowe isn't there. He wasn't going to fire the maid. He was going to weaponize her. Archer Fairborn did not sleep. Sleep was a vulnerability he could no longer afford. He spent the remainder of the night in the security hub, his eyes burning as he scrubbed through weeks of footage from the newly installed cameras. What he saw turned his blood into ice. He watched the day shift. The nurses, women with impeccable references and salaries that rivaled corporate executives, were not merely negligent. They were malicious. He saw Nurse Gables deliberately spill water just out of Helena's reach. He saw the vitamins they administered, pills that he now suspected were sedatives designed to accelerate cognitive decline. But the smoking gun came at 4:13 a.m. On the screen, Nurse Gables sat in the armchair by the window, her phone pressed to her ear. Archer turned up the audio gain, filtering out the hum of the air conditioning, until the voice was razor sharp. "She's still holding on, Mrs. Sterling," Gables whispered, picking at a loose thread on her uniform. "I don't know how. Her vitals should have crashed 2 days ago with the dosage we're giving her. It's like she's getting calories from thin air." A pause. The person on the other end was speaking. Gables flinched. "I am watching her. No one goes in or out. Just the cleaning girl, the quiet one with the scary eyes. She mops the floor and leaves. She's too stupid to notice anything." Archer's grip on the desk tightened until the wood groaned. "Ms. Sterling. Vanessa Sterling." The realization hit him with the force of a physical blow. Vanessa was his fiancée. It wasn't a love match. It was a strategic merger between the Fairborn Syndicate and the Sterling Cartel, a union designed to monopolize the East Coast shipping lanes. Vanessa was beautiful, polished, and seemingly devoted to Helena. She brought flowers every Tuesday. She sat by the bedside and read poetry. And all the while, she was paying the staff to starve his mother to death. Why? The answer was simple, brutal calculus. Helena Fairborn held the deed to the original ancestral estate, the one asset that couldn't be transferred in the merger prenup. As long as Helena was alive, Vanessa couldn't renovate the manor into her personal palace. More importantly, Helena was the only person Archer listened to. To control the king, Vanessa had to remove the queen mother. Archer stood up, his chair scraping violently against the floor. He needed to kill them. He needed to walk into the East Wing, put a bullet in Gables' head, and then drive to Vanessa's penthouse and finish the job. But he stopped, because Vanessa was the daughter of Don Sterling. If Archer killed her without irrefutable proof that would stand up not in a court of law, but in the court of the families, he would start a war that would burn the city to the ground. He needed more than a grainy video of a nurse talking on the phone. He needed to catch Vanessa in the act. He needed to expose the entire network. And to do that, he needed the stupid cleaning girl with the scary eyes. The sun was rising, casting long, bruised shadows across the estate grounds. Marlowe was in the industrial laundry room in the basement, folding sheets. The heat down here was oppressive, the massive dryers spinning rhythmically. She looked tired. Dark circles bruised the skin under her eyes, but her hands moved with that same relentless efficiency. She folded a sheet, pressed it, stacked it. The door clicked shut behind her. The heavy, metallic sound of the lock engaging made her freeze. Marlowe turned slowly. Archer was leaning against the door frame. He wasn't wearing his suit jacket. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and a tattoo of a geometric compass on his left wrist. He looked dangerous, unhinged in a way she had never seen before. "Mr. Fairborn," Marlowe said, her voice steady, though her pulse jumped in her throat. "I was just finishing the linens for the guest wing." "Stop working," Archer said softly. Marlowe put the sheet down. She wiped her hands on her apron. "Is there a problem with my performance, sir? Because if it's about the stain on the rug in the library, I use the enzyme cleaner I know about the soup, Marlowe." The silence that followed was absolute. The dryers seemed to hum louder, filling the space with white noise. Marlowe didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. Her chin lifted slightly, a defiant tilt that surprised him. "Fire me then," she said. Her voice was quiet but hard. "Call the police. Tell them I stole $10 worth of vegetables. But I won't apologize for feeding a starving woman." Archer pushed off the doorframe and walked toward her. Marlowe backed up until her hips hit the folding table. He stopped inches from her, towering over her, his scent of sandalwood and expensive scotch overwhelming her senses. "You think I'm here to fire you?" Archer asked, his voice low, vibrating in the small space. "People like you fire people like me for breathing too loud," Marlowe retorted. "So yes, get it over with." Archer studied her face. Up close, he saw the fire in her eyes. It wasn't fear. It was fury. She was angry at him, for his blindness, for his negligence. "I'm not going to fire you," Archer said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen and held it up. It was the video from the night before, Marlowe feeding Helena, the tenderness, the whispers. "I watched this," Archer said. "And then I watched the rest. I saw Nurse Gables. I saw the pills they're giving her. I know who hired them." Marlowe's expression shifted from defiance to shock. You know? It's Vanessa, Archer said, testing the name on his tongue like a curse. My fiancée. Marlowe let out a breath she seemed to have been holding for weeks. I tried to tell the head housekeeper, she whispered. She told me to shut up, or I'd lose my job. I tried to leave a note for you, but Silas intercepted it. He thought it was a fan letter, or begging for money. You risked your safety, Archer said, stepping closer. You risked prison. Why? Marlowe looked down at her hands. My mother had dementia, she said softly. I took care of her until the end. I know what it looks like when the light goes out behind their eyes, and I know the difference between a dying woman and a hungry one. Mrs. Fairborn isn't ready to go. They're pushing her. Archer felt a strange sensation in his chest, a cracking of the armor he had worn for a decade. He reached out, his hand hovering near her shoulder, then dropping. I need your help, Marlowe. She looked up, startled. Me? I'm just the maid. Exactly, Archer said, a ruthless glint returning to his eyes. You are invisible. Vanessa ignores you. Gables thinks you're stupid. You are the only person in this house they don't see as a threat. What do you want me to do? Vanessa is coming for dinner tonight, Archer said. She's bringing a specialist to evaluate Mother. They're going to accelerate the timeline. I need you to be in that room. I need you to swap the medication they bring. And I need you to wear a wire. Marlowe stared at him. This was madness. It was a plot from a movie. But then she thought of Helena's frail hand gripping hers, the desperation in the old woman's voice. If I do this, Marlowe said, meeting his gaze squarely, you have to promise me one thing. Anything. When this is over, you sit by her bed and you feed her the soup yourself. Archer's lips quirked into a ghost of a smile, the first genuine one she had ever seen. Deal. The plan was hastily constructed but precise. Archer was a tactician, but Marlowe, he discovered, was a natural improviser. We can't just swap the pills, Marlowe argued. They were in the library now, the doors locked. The sunlight streamed through the dust motes, illuminating the maps spread out on the desk. Not maps of land, but blueprints of the house. If the specialist is real, he'll notice if the pills are different shapes or colors. He's not a specialist, Archer said, pacing. Silas ran a background check. Dr. Aris is a struck-off veterinarian from Jersey who owes the Sterling cartel 50 grand. He's a butcher. Even a butcher knows what his own poison looks like, Marlowe countered. She pointed to the kitchen entrance on the blueprint. We don't swap the pills. We spill them. Archer stopped pacing. Explain. I'm the clumsy maid, right? Marlowe said, her mind working fast. I bring in the tea service. I trip. The tray goes flying. Confusion. Chaos. In the mess, I swap the vial Dr. Aris brings with the one you're going to get me from the pharmacy. Simple sugar pills. It's risky, Archer muttered. If Vanessa suspects. She won't suspect me, Marlowe said bittersweetly. Rich people don't suspect the furniture of plotting against them. Archer looked at her. She was wearing a faded cardigan and jeans, her hair in a messy bun, yet she commanded the room. He realized he didn't know anything about her. Not really. Where did you learn to think like this? He asked. Marlowe hesitated. You don't grow up in the Narrows without learning how to lie to survive, Mr. Fairborn. Archer, he corrected. When we are in this room, it's Archer. The air between them charged with static again. It was dangerous territory. He was the boss. She was the help. He was engaged to a murderess. She was the target. But for the first time in years, Archer felt like he had a partner, not just a subordinate. Okay, Archer, she said, testing the name. It sounded intimate, forbidden. Tonight, Archer said. Wear the black uniform, the formal one. And Marlowe? Yes? Don't get hurt. If it goes sideways, you run. You leave me to deal with them. Do you understand? Marlowe didn't answer. She just nodded, but her eyes said otherwise. She wasn't the running type. The hours ticked by with agonizing slowness. The estate transformed. Florists arrived to deck the halls with white lilies, Vanessa's favorite, and coincidentally, the flower of funerals. Caterers set up in the main kitchen, pushing Marlowe and the regular staff to the periphery. At 7 p.m., the guests arrived. Archer stood at the top of the grand staircase, a tuxedo fitting him like a suit of armor. He watched as the limousine pulled up. Vanessa Sterling emerged. She was a vision in emerald green silk, diamonds dripping from her throat like drops of frozen water. She was stunning, sharp, and utterly venomous. Behind her trailed Dr. Eris, a sweaty, nervous man in an ill-fitting suit, clutching a leather medical bag like a lifeline. "Archer, darling," Vanessa purred, ascending the stairs. She kissed him on both cheeks, leaving a smudge of red lipstick. "You look tired. Is the stress of everything getting to you?" "Just work, Vanessa," Archer said, his voice smooth, betraying nothing. "I'm glad you brought Dr. Eris. Mother has been difficult today." "That's why we're here," Vanessa said, linking her arm through his. "To make her comfortable. Finally." From the shadows of the upper landing, Marlowe watched. She adjusted the tiny earpiece hidden in her hair. She smoothed the front of her stiff black dress. Her heart was beating a frantic rhythm against her ribs, but her hands were steady. Showtime, she thought. The dinner was an exercise in torture. Archer sat at the head of the long mahogany table, Vanessa to his right, Dr. Eris to his left. The conversation was polite, vacuous, and laced with underlying menace. "So, Dr. Eris," Archer said, swirling the Barolo in his glass, "what is your prognosis for cases like my mother's? Rapid decline?" Dr. Eris dabbed his forehead with a napkin. "Well, Mr. Fairborn, at this stage, the organ failure is inevitable. The new treatment I brought, it's experimental, very potent. It helps the heart relax." "Relax?" Archer repeated. "Permanently?" Vanessa laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Don't be morbid, darling. The doctor's trying to help. Shall we go up? I want to see poor Helena before she falls asleep." "Of course," Archer said. He signaled to the corner where Marlowe stood, holding a silver tray with a tea service. "Marlowe, bring the tea to the East Wing. Dr. Eris might need warm water for his preparations." Marlowe nodded, keeping her head down. "Yes, sir." The procession moved upstairs. The hallway to the East Wing felt longer than usual, like the final mile to the gallows. Nurse Gables was waiting at the door, looking smug. She exchanged a quick, meaningful glance with Vanessa. They entered the room. Helena was awake, propped up on pillows. When she saw Vanessa, her eyes widened in terror. She tried to shrink back into the headboard, a low whimpering sound escaping her throat. "Shh, Mother," Vanessa cooed, walking over to stroke Helena's hair. Helena flinched as if burned. "It's just me. I brought a friend." Dr. Eris opened his bag on the bedside table. His hands were shaking slightly. He pulled out a vial of clear liquid and a syringe. "This will just take a moment," Eris mumbled. Archer stood by the foot of the bed, his hands clasped behind his back. He was recording everything on the hidden cameras, but he needed the physical evidence. He needed Eris to attempt the injection. "Wait," Archer said. "What is that, exactly?" "A concentrated beta blocker," Vanessa interjected smoothly. "To slow her racing heart. It's for her anxiety, Archer." "I see," Archer said. "Tea, sir?" Marlowe's voice cut through the tension. She stepped forward, the heavy silver tray laden with a porcelain teapot, cups, and a pitcher of hot water. She moved toward the bedside table, squeezing between Dr. Eris and the bed. "Watch it, you clumsy cow," Nurse Gable snapped. Marlowe didn't need to act. She caught the toe of her shoe on the rug. A genuine trip, but controlled. She pitched forward. The tray left her hands. The teapot shattered against the bedside table. Hot water and ceramic shards exploded outward. Marlowe collided with Dr. Eris, sending him stumbling back into Vanessa. "You idiot!" Vanessa shrieked, jumping back as hot tea splashed the hem of her emerald gown. "Look what you've done!" "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry," Marlowe cried, dropping to her knees, frantically grabbing at the napkins. In the chaos, no one looked at Dr. Eris's medical bag. No one saw Marlowe's left hand, fast as a viper, snatch the vial of clear liquid from the open bag and replace it with the identical vial she had concealed in her sleeve. She shoved the real poison into her bra and continued scrubbing the floor. "Get out!" Vanessa screamed. "Archer, fire this incompetent girl immediately!" "Leave it, Marlowe!" Archer said, his voice cold. "Go downstairs." We will discuss your employment later. Marlowe scrambled up, looking terrified, and bolted from the room. As soon as the door closed, silence returned. I apologize, Archer said calmly. Good help is hard to find. Dr. Aris, please. Continue. Dr. Aris, flustered and wiping tea off his jacket, reached back into his bag. He picked up the vial Marlowe had planted. Yes, of course. He drew the liquid into the syringe. Helena whimpered, her eyes locked on Archer. Help me, she seemed to plead. Archer didn't move. He needed them to administer it. He needed the attempt on record. Dr. Aris approached the IV line. He uncapped the port. He pushed the plunger. Vanessa watched with a look of predatory anticipation. She checked her watch. Seconds passed. Then a minute. Helena blinked. She looked around. Her breathing remained steady. Her heart monitor continued its rhythmic, strong beep. Beep! Beep! Vanessa frowned. She looked at Aris. Well, it should be immediate, Aris stammered. He tapped the syringe. That was a lethal a high dose. Archer stepped forward. The predator was no longer hiding in the grass. He was out in the open. A lethal dose? Archer asked softly. I didn't say that. Aris backpedaled, sweating profusely. It's funny, Archer said, walking to the bedside table. He picked up a shard of the broken teapot. Because my mother looks remarkably alive. Almost as if you injected her with saline solution. Vanessa's face went pale. What are you talking about? Archer pulled a small remote from his pocket and pressed a button. The large monitor on the wall, usually used for Helena's TV, flickered to life. It showed the live feed from the security room. And then it rewound. It showed the footage from 10 minutes ago. Marlowe's sleight of hand, slowed down and zoomed in by Silas, who was manning the controls downstairs. It showed Marlowe swapping the vials perfectly. Vanessa stared at the screen. Then she turned to Archer, her mask falling away to reveal pure, unadulterated hatred. You set me up, she hissed. I did, Archer agreed. And now, I have footage of your doctor attempting to administer a substance he believed would kill my mother. Attempted murder, Vanessa. Conspiracy. And since Aris here is a coward, Archer looked at the doc, who was trembling. I'm guessing he'll flip on you in about 5 minutes to save his own skin. Vanessa laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. She reached into her clutch. You think a video scares me, Archer? My father owns the judges. My father owns the police. She pulled out a small, pearl-handled pistol. But he doesn't own me, she said, aiming the gun not at Archer, but at Helena. If I can't do it quietly, I'll do it loud. Archer's hand moved to his shoulder holster, but he was too far away. He couldn't draw before she fired. Bang. The shot was deafening in the small room, but Helena didn't scream. Vanessa did. The gun flew from Vanessa's hand as a vase from the other side of the room shattered against her wrist. Marlowe stood in the doorway of the bathroom, chest heaving. She hadn't left. She had doubled back through the adjoining suite, and she had thrown the heavy crystal vase with the accuracy of a shortstop. Get away from her, Marlowe yelled, grabbing a scalpel from the medical tray and standing between the gun and the bed. Archer didn't hesitate. In one fluid motion, he drew his weapon and pistol-whipped Dr. Aris, sending him crumbling to the floor. He spun on Vanessa, leveling the gun at her forehead. It's over, Vanessa, Archer said, his voice deadly calm. Vanessa clutched her broken wrist, looking from Archer to the maid who held a scalpel like a street fighter. You're going to regret this, Vanessa spat. You chose a maid over an empire. Archer looked at Marlowe. Her hair was coming loose. Her dress was stained with tea, and she looked absolutely magnificent. I chose the only person in this room worthy of respect, Archer said. Silas, get in here. The doors burst open. Silas and 2 guards rushed in. Take them to the basement, Archer commanded. We'll wait for Don Sterling to call. I want to be the one to tell him his daughter is a disappointment. As the guards dragged a screaming Vanessa and a sobbing Aris away, the room fell silent. Archer holstered his gun. He turned to the bed. Helena was shaking, tears streaming down her face. Archer sat on the edge of the bed. He took his mother's hand. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. He looked up at Marlowe. She was still standing guard. the scalpel gripped tight in her hand. "You can put that down now, Marlo," Archer said softly. Marlo dropped the scalpel. Her legs gave way. Archer caught her before she hit the floor. The silence that followed the arrest of Vanessa Sterling was not peaceful. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a shoreline before a tsunami. Archer stood on the balcony of the master suite, watching the sunrise bleed across the horizon. His phone had been ringing for an hour. Don Sterling. The message was clear without him even answering. "Release my daughter, or die." Inside the room, the atmosphere was different. For the first time in months, the air didn't smell of sickness. It smelled of antiseptic, yes, but also of fresh linens and the warm, earthy scent of the herbal tea Marlo was brewing. Archer turned back to the room. Marlo was asleep in the armchair next to Helena's bed. She hadn't left his mother's side all night. She was curled up, her head resting on her knees, the scalpel she had wielded like a warrior, now sitting innocuously on the nightstand next to a vase of fresh flowers. Archer walked over to her. He looked down at the woman who had saved his world. In the daylight, she looked younger, softer, but he knew better now. There was steel in her spine. "Marlo," he whispered. She stirred, her eyes snapping open instantly. There was no grogginess, only immediate alertness. She saw him and relaxed. "Is she okay?" Marlo asked, looking at Helena. "She's sleeping," Archer said. "Real sleep. Her vitals are stable. The new doctor I flew in says she's malnourished, but she'll live. Because of you." Marlo stood up, smoothing her wrinkled uniform. She looked down at the tea stains on her skirt. "I should go change. I have to start the breakfast prep for the staff and—" "No," Archer said. He reached out and took her hand. Her fingers were rough, calloused from years of hard labor. He ran his thumb over her knuckles. "You are done scrubbing floors, Marlo. You are done cooking for my guards." Marlo pulled her hand back gently, looking uncomfortable. "Archer, I appreciate the sentiment, but I need this job. And with the war coming, you're going to need everyone in their places." "War is here," Archer corrected grimly. "Sterling's men have surrounded the perimeter. They haven't attacked yet because they know I have Vanessa in the holding cell. It's a standoff, but it won't last." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to trade her," Archer said. "Vanessa for peace. It's the smart play." "It's the wrong play," Marlo said. Archer blinked. "Excuse me?" Marlo walked to the window, peering through the blinds at the black SUVs idling at the front gates. "Vanessa isn't just a hostage, Archer. She's a liability to her father now. You have the video of her trying to kill your mother. In our world, in your world, killing a matriarch is a sin, isn't it? It makes you look weak. It makes you look like an animal." Archer studied her. "Go on." "If you trade her back, Sterling buries the evidence and comes back for you in a month. He can't let you live knowing what you know. But if you release the video, if you show the other families what the Sterlings are really doing, I destroy his reputation," Archer finished, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I strip him of his allies before I even fire a shot." "You don't fight a bully with fists," Marlo said, turning back to him, her eyes fierce. "You fight him with the truth. You shame him." Archer shook his head in disbelief. "I have a Harvard MBA and 20 years in the syndicate. You have a high school diploma and a mop. How are you smarter than me?" Marlo shrugged, a small, sad smile playing on her lips. "You learned about power in a classroom, Archer. I learned about it in a shelter. You learned to spot the weak link, or you don't eat." Archer crossed the room in 2 strides. He didn't care about the war outside. He didn't care about the guards in the hall. He cupped her face in his hands. "I don't know who you are, Marlo Drake," he murmured, leaning in until their foreheads touched. "But I intend to spend the rest of my life finding out." He didn't kiss her. Not yet. The moment was too fragile, too heavy with the promise of violence outside. Instead, he pulled away and handed her a key card. "Go to the guest suite. Shower. Sleep. There are clothes in the closet. Vanessa sighs, unfortunately. But burn them if you have to. Just get out of that uniform. When the sun goes down, we end this." Night fell like a shroud. The estate was in lockdown. Steel shutters covered the windows. The security team, led by Silas, patrolled the corridors with assault rifles. In the command center, Archer watched the screens. He had sent the video file to the heads of the 5 ruling families an hour ago. Now, he waited. Marlowe sat beside him. She was wearing a black silk blouse and trousers she had found in the guest room. Simple, functional, but elegant. She no longer looked like the help. She looked like the queen of the chessboard. "Movement at the north gate," Silas barked. On the screen, the SUVs were moving, but they weren't retreating. They were ramming the gate. "He didn't take the bait," Archer cursed. "Sterling doesn't care about his reputation. He's going for a scorched earth policy." Boom. The entire house shook. The lights flickered and died. The screens went black. "They cut the main power," Silas shouted into the darkness. "Backup generators kicking in 3, 2. Red emergency lights bathed the room in a bloody glow. "They're inside," Archer said, checking his weapon. "They're coming for Vanessa, and they'll kill anyone in their way." "We need to move Helena," Marlowe said instantly. "The East Wing is too exposed." "We can't move her," Archer argued. "She's on life support. If we disconnect the machines..." "The panic room has independent power," Marlowe said. "I saw the schematics when I was cleaning the library. It's behind the wine cellar, right?" Archer stared at her. "Yes, but the elevators are down. We can't carry a hospital bed down 4 flights of stairs." "We don't need the stairs," Marlowe said, grabbing a flashlight. "The laundry chute." "The laundry chute?" Silas asked, incredulous. "It's industrial size," Marlowe snapped. "I've cleared blockages in it myself. It runs from the linen closet in the East Wing directly to the basement laundry room. The laundry room is 20 feet from the wine cellar." It was insane. It was undignified. It was brilliant. "Go!" Archer commanded Silas. "Take 2 men. Hold the hallway. Marlowe and I will get Mother." They sprinted through the darkened house. Gunfire erupted on the lower levels. The sharp crack, crack, crack of automatic weapons. Sterling's men were breaching the foyer. They reached the East Wing. Helena was awake, terrified, the red emergency lights making her look skeletal. "We have to go, Mom," Archer said, scooping her up in his arms. She weighed nothing. It broke his heart. They ran to the linen closet. Marlowe kicked the basket of dirty towels aside and opened the hatch. "It's a straight drop," Marlowe said. "I'll go first. I'll catch her legs. You slide her down gently." Marlowe didn't hesitate. She jumped into the dark metal void. Archer heard her slide, then a thud. "Ready!" Her voice echoed up. Archer lowered his mother. "Trust me, Mom." He let go. He followed seconds later, sliding down the metal tunnel, landing in a pile of linens Marlowe had kicked into place to break their fall. They were in the basement. The air was cool and damp. Above them, the sounds of war were muffled. Marlowe was already untangling Helena, wrapping her in a clean sheet. "The wine cellar. This way." They moved through the labyrinthine basement. They could hear boots on the stairs. Sterling's men were close. They reached the heavy oak door of the wine cellar. Archer punched in the code. The false wall swung open to reveal the steel door of the panic room. He got Helena inside and settled her on the cot. He turned to Marlowe. "Get in," he ordered. "Where are you going?" Marlowe grabbed his arm. "I have to finish this," Archer said. "Silas can't hold them alone." "You can't go out there," Marlowe cried. "There are too many of them." "I started this," Archer said. "I brought this poison into our house. I have to cut it out." He kissed her then. It was fierce, desperate, tasting of adrenaline and fear. He kissed her like a man going to the gallows. "Lock the door," he commanded, pulling away. "Don't open it for anyone but me." The steel door slammed shut. Marlowe was alone with Helena in the silence of the vault. But Marlowe didn't sit down. She looked at the security monitors inside the panic room. They were still active on the independent grid. She saw Archer moving through the basement, taking cover behind wine crates. She saw Sterling's men, 6 of them, moving to flank him. Archer was pinned down. He was going to die. Marlowe looked at the console. There were controls for the house systems, sprinklers, alarms, and the fire suppression system. The halon gas system for the wine cellar, designed to suck oxygen out of the room to stop a fire from destroying the vintage collection. It was dangerous, but Archer was just outside the cellar. The men were inside it. Marlowe's hand hovered over the button. "Forgive me," she whispered. She hit the override. Silence returned to the Fairborn estate. The halon gas had done its work. The 6 mercenaries in the wine cellar were unconscious, incapacitated by the lack of oxygen before they could fire a shot. Archer, sensing the change in air pressure, had retreated to the corridor just in time. Upstairs, the sirens of the police and the private security forces of the other families were wailing. The video had done its job. The other Dons had turned on Sterling. They had sent their own enforcers to clean up the mess Sterling made, viewing his attack as a violation of the truce. Don Sterling was arrested in his limo at the main gate, betrayed by his own lieutenants, who didn't want to go down with a sinking ship. It was dawn when the panic room door hissed open. Archer stood there. He was covered in soot, his tuxedo shirt torn, blood trickling from a cut on his brow. But he was alive. Marlowe stood up from the cot where she had been holding Helena's hand. Archer walked into the room. He didn't look at the monitors. He didn't look at his mother. He looked at Marlowe. "You triggered the halon system," he said. "It wasn't a question. I saw them flanking you," Marlowe said, her voice trembling slightly. "I knew you were out of range. I had to." Archer stared at her. Most women would have cowered. Most soldiers would have hesitated. She had made a tactical decision that saved his life. He dropped to his knees in front of her. He wrapped his arms around her waist and buried his face in her stomach. He shook, the adrenaline finally crashing. "Thank you," he muffled into the silk of her borrowed shirt. 2 weeks later, the Fairborn estate was quiet. The broken windows were repaired. The blood was scrubbed from the marble. The staff, the ones who had been complicit, were gone, replaced by people Marlowe had personally vetted. Helena was in the garden. She was in a wheelchair, but she was sitting up, the color returning to her cheeks. Archer walked out onto the terrace. He held 2 bowls of soup. He sat down on the stone bench beside his mother. Marlowe was sitting on the other side, reading a book aloud. "Lunchtime," Archer announced. Helena smiled. "Is it Marlowe's recipe?" "Of course," Archer said. "I wouldn't dare serve you anything else." He dipped the spoon into the bowl. He blew on it gently. He fed his mother. Marlowe watched them. The ruthless mafia boss, the man who could dismantle a corporation or a cartel with a phone call, was wiping broth from his mother's chin with a tenderness that made her chest ache. Archer looked up and caught her staring. "Your turn next," he teased, nodding at the other bowl. "I can feed myself, thanks," Marlowe laughed. "For now," Archer said. He set the bowl down and turned to her. His expression turned serious. "I spoke to the lawyers this morning." Marlowe stiffened. "Oh? Am I being fired finally?" "Technically, yes," Archer said. Marlowe's heart dropped. "Oh, I see. I suppose now that things are normal, you need a professional staff." "I do," Archer agreed. "But that's not why I'm firing you. I'm firing you because I can't be in a relationship with my employee. It's an HR nightmare." Marlowe blinked. Relationship? Archer reached into his jacket pocket. He didn't pull out a ring. It was too soon for that. He pulled out a velvet box containing a simple, elegant key. "The key to the front door," Archer said. "Not the service entrance. The front door. I want you to stay, Marlowe. Not as a maid, not as a nurse. As whatever you want to be. My partner, my conscience, the lady of the house." Marlowe looked at the key. It caught the sunlight. It represented everything she had never had. Safety, a home, a family. She looked at Helena, who was nodding encouragingly. She looked at Archer, the man who had looked past the uniform and seen the warrior beneath. Marlowe took the key. "I'm keeping the soup recipe, though," she warned, smiling. "The chef still doesn't get the turmeric right." Archer laughed, a free, unburdened sound that echoed across the garden. He leaned in and kissed her, and this time there was no darkness, only the bright, warm promise of a new day. And that is how the maid who stole soup stole the heart of the most dangerous man in the city. Archer learned that loyalty isn't bought, it's earned. And Vanessa, well, let's just say prison food isn't quite as good as Marlowe's cooking. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, redemption, and hidden cameras, smash that like button. It really helps the channel. What would you have done in Marlowe's shoes? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.